What's up, YouTube fam? We're back again with another project. This time it's a whole new project, and obviously it's what you see right here. It's like a mid-sized quad, kind of like a KLX 110 pit bike. And talking about KLX, that's the motor that's in here. So this motor is from, I think, a 2004 Kawasaki KLX 110 dirt bike. As you could see, I already did a few things. I took off like all the unnecessary brackets that I wasn't going to use, and it just makes it look cleaner also. But that's the motor in there, KLX 110 on this little quad. So what we're working on today, obviously this thing's not even mounted in there. I just threw it in the frame to see if it would fit pretty nicely, and it does. It's pretty close over here, but it'll work pretty nicely. But today we're going to be making the mounting points and engine bracket for this. So we'll be doing that this whole video. That's about it. And after that, we'll be doing suspension. So this is pretty good suspension. It's not the best, honestly. It's actually pretty crappy. But I'm going to be putting reinforcements on all of these things right here, that all the parts that kind of need it. And these shocks, they might get replaced, but I might make it to where this bike can take these shocks and another set that I have that are just crazy soft. Like, it just feel like you're on a couch cushion when you're riding this. But yeah, those are the plans for this sweet little thing. So we'll get started on the engine mounts. So let's get to it. I thought I was filming, but I already went ahead and I welded one side of this mount right here, and then that one back there is fully welded in. So I'm going to continue with the other side on the top mount. All mounts welded in. Engine is fully mounted up to the brackets. Just needs 2 bolts right there. But I'm really liking the way it came out. It's in there really solid already, and it's not even fully tightened up. So that's all done finally. So first things first, for suspension, I really want to be able to run these right here and keep it this height for when I just want to keep it like a normal quad, I guess. And then I want to have another set that is a higher mount up here, and it just completely drops the quad, like basically like my shifter cart. Same for the rear. So I want it to be like a street and a dirt quad. So it's going to be a pretty fun little toy. All right, front suspension time. I already have this unbolted from the upper shock mount, and I have one of the shocks I'll be using when this is nice and low to the ground. And like I mentioned a second ago, I wanted to run 2 heights for this, one for dirt and one for when I mess around in the streets. So I was hoping it would clear this shock mount for the dirt height. And I already brought up the wheel, something like this, where this shock would be like right here. So that's where that's going to be mounted. And it just clears the other mount, so it's just enough for this to work. So it looks like I am going to pull it off. So I just need to weld up the upper shock mounts for each side, get that all situated, and then we can move on to the rear and then get this on the floor once it's all stanced out and stuff. There it is. Both upper shock mounts welded in, shocks bolted up. I just have to fasten them real quick. So now I'm just gonna remove the rear shock and do the same thing like I did to the front basically. Give that a nice low stance, get it on the floor, see how it looks, and after that move on to wiring, get this thing fired up finally, and then once all that's done, I'll probably strip it back down, paint it, and all that stuff. And one other thing, this project will actually have brakes. Right, so now we're gonna take off the rear shock so I can get the bigger one on there and mock it up and see where I'm gonna have to put the new shock mount. And this one's gonna stay here also, just so I can keep that dirt height for when I wanna ride dirt and all that stuff. So let's get this off right now. So I got the rear up on a jack stand, kind of where I'm gonna have it sitting at. I got the new rear shock in there. It's mounted in the original mounting bracket. I have to make a new one up here, and that's about it. So let me make a new mount, weld that in there, and get this on the ground and see how it looks on the floor. Looking pretty good. Really liking the way it sits. Might do a little bit of work to the subframe to where that sits parallel to the ground, and then a little bit of framework right around right there for the exhaust, because the frame blocks it from passing through right there. So those two things and framework should be done. I'll just have to do some wiring, maybe a little bit more framework to like harness the wiring and all that stuff, and then a little bit of reinforcements. So I guess I'm not done with framework, but we're almost done. I already made a cut in the frame for the exhaust to pass through. I made a bit of a bigger cut, but that's just for the piece that I'm putting in there. It's bent and it clears the exhaust perfect. And the subframe, I actually already cut and welded in, so that's sitting more low to the ground. It's a little bit more flat, looks less stink bug. But right now, we're gonna do some more welding time and get that piece welded in. So let's do that. Right, new piece of metal is welded in. That thing went in there pretty nice. It barely clears the exhaust, but it's pretty solid. And I went ahead and welded an exhaust hanger. I just need to get the hardware for that, and that's good to go. So since those two things are done, I guess I'll move on to the brakes. I have to weld in a new little caliper mount. So I'll cut out the mounts or bracket and then weld that in there. And then same for this master cylinder. So bracket for that, weld it in, and then I'll have to make a brake pedal from scratch. So that's gonna be a new thing for me. I've never built one, so it's gonna be pretty cool shaping my own pedal and seeing it all come together. All right, we're back with triple progress on this one. I got the caliper, master cylinder, and brake pedal all finished. Caliper's welded in there, the master cylinder is welded in there, and the brake pedal is fully functional. I already bled the system so the brakes work and all that good stuff. I really like how the pedal came out. I gave it that kind of S shape just so it could push that piston up really easy, and that's what it does, so really stoked on that. So I guess all that's next is to put on this wheel, and the next challenge is the gas tank. So I'll probably be making this from scratch or buy one, but I'm not entirely sure yet, so we'll see which direction I go. But I might end up building one, but we'll see. But after that's all done, I'll wire this thing up, make sure it starts up, and then I'll tear it all back down and then figure out a paint job. So even that I don't know yet. So that's all gonna be a surprise even for me. So I guess we'll keep it moving. This thing's almost finished. All right, so I already made a few cuts and I tacked a few pieces of metal together. but we got the shape and the look of the gas tank in there, and I'm really liking it so far. So that's the look of it from the side. It's not too big. It's gonna look really nice on there, but we just have to weld up the top and the bottom, make sure this thing doesn't leak any gas. All right, here we got our little makeshift welding table, top mount that's gonna be going on right now, and all the other mounts that are gonna be welded. So right now, we're gonna start with this big one and put that on top, something like that. So we'll get that on there and do the others as well. So let's get started. All right, so I got about 4 or 5 things done ever since I finished up welding the gas tank. One of them is still in progress, and a few other things didn't get captured because my battery died. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you all things that are finished. There's the gas tank. I'm so stoked on how this thing came out. Literally what I visioned came to life, so I'm really stoked on this thing. It's fully functional, even has gas in there. It's ready to go, man. And then the other thing that I had to work on was this reinforcement right here. It was really weak, and this was just really ugly. So I closed up the holes it had with some welds and added this reinforcement, so it's nice and sturdy and stout in the rear. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, I made this little steering clamp from scratch. I didn't want to sit around waiting for one to show up at my house, so I just bent this piece of metal and welded away. So that's in there, and that's finished. And then, what was the other thing? That was 1, 2, 3. Fourth thing right now that I'm working on is this motor mount. So at first, this engine was permanently mounted in here, mainly because of this top mount, but I thought of a quick idea that I could just do to this and modify to where this half will come off, and basically I could pull out this motor. So in the next video, you'll see most likely how that works. It'll be able to help just when I'm painting this or just have some work to do on it in general. That's all I can think of right now. I can't think of the other thing that I did, so when I do, I'm sure I'll be like, oh yeah, I thought of it. Fifth thing was this bracket right here. I mentioned in another part that I needed to add a piece right here just in case this wanted to create stress and cave in on itself. So that's in there. I still have to clean up the little slag off the welds, but looking good. All right, 2 things. I remembered what I forgot, and we're gonna be firing up the quad right now, so stay tuned. It was this. It was right in front of me the entire time, and this was my first seat I put together. Same with that gas tank. When I was building this, I realized this whole thing didn't have a seat for it. And I didn't think about that once like during the entire build. But I put this together real quick, so we're good on that part. But now I have the wiring that I need to get this thing turned on, and let's do that. Let's hear what kind of sound this thing makes. First fire up with the mini quad. Here we go. Hopefully it goes good. Fun is over, but I take this as a victory. This thing fired up, it sounded beautiful, all the major projects were finished, and yeah, this thing just needs some paint and obviously to rip it around. So stay tuned for video part 2, because I'm pretty sure that's what all of you are going to want to see. And I would like to say thank you to those who watched this video, even those who just clicked this video, and everyone who likes, comments, subscribes, shares these videos. Yeah, even if you have questions, go ahead and ask me. Don't hesitate about that. I'm always happy to help. But yeah, stay tuned for video part 2, because that's where all the action is. We're out.